Ma, Demai, olive base. Um, Demai is not a subject to the fifth and to removal and may be eaten by an onan. It may be taken into Yerushalayim and taken out again, and a small quantity may be left on the road, and one may give it to an Amoritz, but must consume its equivalent, and it may be changed silver for silver, copper for copper, silver for copper, and copper for fruit, provided that the fruit will be redeemed for money. That's Red Mayor. As the common say, the fruit must be taken up in Yerushalayim and eaten there. If one buys food for seed for cattle, flour for hides, and oil for a lamp, and oil for greasing utensils, it is exempt from demai. The kizib, and beyond one is exempt from demai. The challah of an amaretz and mixed produce, and what has been bought with ma'aseh money, and the remainder of the meal offerings are exempt from demai. Perfumed oil, Beis Shammai declares it liable, but Beis Hillel says it's exempt. The mind may be used for an error for partnership and for the blessing of deciding thereon, and one invites on it, and one may separate it on it and separate it in the nude or at dusk. If one has separated Meister Sheni before fingers is able to, oh sorry, if one has separated Meister Sheni before Meister Rishon, it does not matter. Oil which the weaver rubs on his fingers is liable to demai, but that which the woodcomber puts on the wood is exempt from demai. Okay.
Okay. All right, Perk base. Elu Dvarim Misasrin Demai B'chomakum. So we gave an example last perk um, of produce that is assumed to have come from Hefker. So and even if it didn't, we're not too much pit on it because um, it's only it's Demai is only for a minority of cases in any event. So. However, there are some things that do not just grow randomly on the side of the road that are cultivated for sure and are well known as a product in Eretz Yisrael. That being important because of course it's only liable to Chumas and Mashas if it grows in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so here are the things need to be treated as demai, even if you're in Chutz La'aretz. So like let's say you're north of Kaziv. We said there was that place Kaziv where we had said okay, but further north than that we don't have to worry about such and such things. Um, but yeah, even if you're north of Kaziv, you still and an Amaretz gives you or sells you some of this produce, you still have to treat it as demai. Hadvela, those are that's fig cakes. Um, and tamarim, dates, charuvim, carobs, orez, even rice. Now this was like a big eye opener to me because I always thought that rice came from the Far East, but
That's true.
here it is in the Mishnah that this was a product of Eretz Yisrael. But come on, cumin.
Right.
Okay. Orez shebechutz laaretz kol mishtamish memenu patar. So there are different types of rice though. Okay, and I wouldn't be able to tell you what it is in today's terms, the Parsi and the Basmati and the Jasmine and whatever, all these different types of rices. I don't know which one was the Eretz Yisrael rice, but if you see a species of rice in Chutz La'aretz that you don't recognize from Israel, then you don't have to worry about Demai either.
I never knew what the rice was. I see if my wife asked me to buy rice. I see all these rices. I don't know. I have no
Mhm.
idea. They feel like they're all the same.
Yeah, they are different. They are definitely different. Um, Hamakot Alav Lios Ne'eman. Okay, so here's an Amaretz who sees that that he sold something to a chaver and he catches the chaver separating Trumas and Masters from it, and he says, "Why are you doing that? I already did it." And he says, "Well, because you're an Amaretz, and I have to treat it as Demai." It's just, and he says, "Look, I don't want to be treated like that. I want to be able to sell my produce and people will trust me. I'm very particular about separating my chumas and mashas, and he's whatever. He's offended that people will treat him
Right.
like so. Okay, so you want to be ne'eman? Here's what you need to do to be ne'eman in this Mishnah right here. Me'aser eshehu ochel, then he has to take masras from whatever he eats. Ve'eshehu mocher, and also he has to take masras on whatever he sells before it hits the market. Okay, ve'eshehu lokech, and also what he buys. So in both directions, he has to show that he is very particular about taking masros, that whatever he buys as well. But so in other words, he has to keep the dinim of demai, which possibly he wasn't doing before. But but very importantly, he may not eat a meal at somebody who is considered an Amaretz, because that shows that he's not really that he's not really particular about masros, if he's trusting this guy to to take the masters of who isn't trusted. So basically, what it is kind of it's kind of an infectious thing. If you want to be in the circle, you have to break totally from the other circle. Um, so if you want to be called Ne'eman, then you can only eat things from people who are Ne'eman, or else if you get something from outside the circle of Ne'eman people, then you have to take masters off them. And that's got to be your behavior. That's it's not a hugely high bar to follow. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, "Af hamisarech etzel ha'ma'aretz ne'eman." Even if somebody does take does eat at another ha'ma'aretz, he is nonetheless trusted. And everyone else looks at him and says, "Amrullah, al atzmo eino ne'eman, keitzad yehi ne'eman al shel acherim." If he doesn't act for himself in accordance with the way that we're saying, that just simply trusts an amaretz on masros, then how could he be trusted to pass on produce to other people if he's not particular for himself? So the halakha does not follow Rabbi Yehuda, and indeed it's an interesting question, and I don't understand Rabbi Yehuda's position over here, because it seems to be a very illogical kind of a position. The Chachamim's argument against him is very strong. But I mean, we're talking about Rabbi Yehuda here. He's also a Tana, so he must have had a good reason, but I don't know what it was. Um,
Commentary says here, although in order to gain trust, he must undertake not to be the guest of an Amaretz. He does not forfeit his trust, even if he does become his guest.
Hmm. So it seems like a b'diavad that okay, you slipped up, but we're not going to make you lose your trust. Yeah. By the way, this is all done by that he undertakes to do all of this, and he does in front of a beis din and says, "Look, I'm taking this on, and I want you to give me the hechsher that I'm considered a ne'eman." Okay. Now there's one step up from a ne'eman, and that's called a chaver. So what's the difference between a ne'eman and a chaver? Is that ne'eman is trusted as far as taking trumas and masters is concerned. A chaver is trusted as far as tuma and tara are concerned, because that's another thing that Ami Haaretz were not familiar with all the laws of tuma and tara, particularly the dinim of midras. Now, midras tuma is a very pervasive thing, as we've learned. I mean, we've just come out of learning all the say the taros. And like if you have a cloak, a cloak is susceptible to midras because you can sit on it, right, and bears your weight. So if the Amaretz's niddah wife stepped on it or sat on it or lay on it or whatever it is, that cloak becomes a midras, and it transmits not just by touch, but even by like putting weight through something. So that's it's very Midrash Tumah is kind of infectious in that respect, and that's why the Chaverim were very distrustful of Amei Aretz when it came to Tumah and Tara. Anything that they got from Amei Aretz, they just assumed was Tameh, unless it was like not susceptible to Tumah. Except unless it came to the situation of going to the Mikdash. When it came to the Mikdash and Kodshim and things like that, then then the Amay Aretz are going to be very particular about their stuff. But for everyday stuff, no, we don't trust them. Okay, so if an Amay Aretz comes and says, "Listen, I want to be a chaver. I've learned the halachas and I want to be trusted as a chaver." Eno mocher la'am haaretz lach liyavesh. Now there are a whole bunch of chumras that come into this one, and these are some tough ones to keep. Okay. So first of all, there is a chumra that one cannot make food become tameh, even chulin food. You're not allowed to make tameh in Eretz Yisrael. Okay, so you've got to be very careful about. So that's part of the chumrah of Tuma and Tara is that you're eating all of your chulin food as if it's kodesh. So you're trying to so that you're used to keeping Tuma and Tara. Okay, and that means that he may not sell any produce to an Am Haaretz, um, even whether it's wet or dry. And dry because even if it's dry and it has never been in contact with water, the Amaris is going to take it home and wash it, and then it'll be susceptible to tumah. Okay. And he will not purchase anything from an Amaretz that has been wet. Okay, as we learned in Machshirin, that means that it has been susceptible to tumah, which means if it's coming out of the Amaretz's house, it's tameh. Okay. Ve'eno misareach etzel ha'maaretz, and for sure he cannot have a meal at the Amaretz. V'lo me'archo etzlo b'ksuso. And if he invites an Amaretz over to his house for a meal, he has to say to the Amaretz, "Come inside, go into the cloakroom over there. I've got some clothes for you to wear." Because why we don't trust his clothes? Because as we said, his Amaret's wife may have sat on them, and then he's going to come in his clothes onto the table, and he personally, we don't really care that much if he personally is Tameh, because he can only transmit like to one degree, and that's only going to affect the stuff that he himself is eating. Okay, that's his issue, but it's but for the clothing that he's wearing, no, we make him change. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, Af lo yigadel behema daka. He says, I've got a bunch of other chumras for him. He must be particular about not raising small livestock in Eretz Israel because the way they eat, they tend to destroy vegetation. V'lo yehei parutz b'nedarim u'b'schok, and he cannot be familiar with making lots of vows because he's going to come to break them, and he mustn't be full of levity, because that leads, kalus rosh leads to erva. V'lo yehei mitame l'meisim, and he should not become tame to the dead. Um, so he's like acting like a kohen even, or mishamesh beves hamidrash, and he should be spending most of his time in the base of midrash. And the rest of the Chacham said that's going too far. Lo ba'elu l'klal. That's not a bar. Those are things that have got nothing to do with I mean, other than Tamil Mesim, but in general, it's not to do with Tuma and Tara. If you want to judge somebody whether he's a chaver as far as being careful about Tuma and Tara concerned, then leave it to the Tuma of Tuma and Tara. But those other things are not necessary to be judged a chaver. Okay, and
Zara.
back to Paya.
Okay. Saw of plucked grain and a saw of unplucked, and similarly, trees, garlic, and onions are not joined together to two saws, but belong to the poor. The Yossi says if anything that belongs to the poor intervenes, they do not join together, and if not, they do join together. Grain which is given for fodder or for binding sheaves, and similarly stalks of garlic and bundles of garlic and onions are not liable to shikatah. And anything buried in the ground, such as loaf, garlic, and onions, Rabbi Huda says they're not liable to shikatah, but they come and say they are liable to shikatah. And if one reaps at night and binds sheaves in the blind person, the law of shikakara applies. If he intends to take only the large ones, the law of shikakara does not apply. And if he said, I reap on condition that what I forget I will take, it is liable to shikakara. Okay.
Brachos.
Uh, Gimel Dalet. A Belkari reads mentally and does not recite in the blessings before or after it. On food, he recites the after blessings, but is not blessed before. Rabbi Yehuda says he blesses before and after them. Someone who was standing engaged in tefillah and remembered that he was a Balkari, if he does not, on that account, stop altogether. Instead, he shortens. If he descended to immerse himself and is able to come up and cover himself and to read before the sun rises, he shall come up, dress, read, and if not, he shall cover himself with the water and read. But he may not cover himself in evil-smelling water or in water of soaking until he pours in water. How far away should one remove himself from it and from excrement? For Alma. A Sav who became a Balkari and a menstruant who discharged semen and a woman who engaged in relations and noticed herself menstruating requires immediate immersion. That's Rabbi Yehuda exempts.
Okay.
Okay. Mikvos. The following items do not intervene: entangled hair of the head, of the armpit, or the man's private parts. Rav Elias says both men and women are the same in that anything which one finds disturbing does not intervene, does intervene. Anything which does not find disturbing does not intervene. Room in the eye and encrusting on a wound, or nor may we immerse them, but we may immerse with any other mud if it is wet. And
Oh,
one may not. I did the wrong
you're
thing.
going
Wait a second.
backwards. So hold on a
Went
second.
backwards. I know. I
You bet.
know.
Yeah, I was a lot.
Thing. I'm sorry. Wound in the eye and encrusted on a wound. Wet sap, smears of wet dirt on one's body, dirt under the nail, a dangling nail, a child's downy hair either admits tumor nor transmit tumor. However, skin on a wound emits tumor and transmits tumor. The following cases are an intervention regarding utensils: pitch or musk on glassware, whether on the inside or outside. When found on a table, on a tray, or a cot, they are otherwise clean. It does not intervene, but if they otherwise soiled, it does not intervene. On the beds of a householder, it does intervene, but on those of a portioner, it does not intervene. On the back saddle of a householder, it does intervene, but on those of waters can carriers, it does not intervene. On a saddle cloth, it doesn't intervene. Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says only if the soil is at least the size of an Italian is.
Okay. Caleb.
Damn. Okay. Hey, Yud. If one cut the oven into segments and placed sand between the segments, Rabbi Eliezer rules a tahor with a common say it's tummy. This is the oven of the coiled serpent. Arabian cauldrons that one digs in the ground and plasters with clay. If the clay can stand on its own, it's tummy. But if not, it is tahor. And this is the oven of the Ben Nina. An oven of stone or of metal is tahor, but the metal oven is tamei as a metal utensil. If it developed a hole or became damaged or cracked, and one made a clay coating for it, or the supplement of clay, it is tamei. How large must the hole be? Large enough for the flame to pass through, and the same applies to a stove. A stove of stone or of metal is tahor, but a metal stove is tamei as a metal utensil. If it developed a hole or became damaged or cracked, and one made feet for it, it is tamei. If one plastered it with clay, whether on the inside or outside, it is tahor. The Yehuda says on the inside it's tamei, but on the outside tahor. And if one assembled 3 feet upon the ground and joined them with clay so that he could set the pot on top of them, this makeshift stove is tamei. If one affixed 3 nails into the ground so that he could set the pot on top of it, even though he fashioned a place at the top of this makeshift stove for the pot to rest, it is tahor. If one made 2 stones into a stove and joined them with clay, it is tamei. Rabbi Yehuda rules it tahor until he makes a third stone or he places the stove near the wall. And if one stone was joined with clay and one was not joined with clay, it's tahor. And we are on to Baba Basra. Okay, hey base. One who sells a donkey has not sold its equipment. Nachum Namid says if he has sold his equipment. Rabbi Yehuda says sometimes they are sold, sometimes they are not sold. How so? If the donkey was in front of him and his equipment was on it, he said to him, "Sell me this donkey of yours; its equipment is sold." But if he said, "This is your donkey; its equipment is not sold." One who sells a donkey has sold a fowl. If he sold a cow, he has not sold its calf. If he sold a dung heap, he has not sold its manure. If he sold a pit, he has sold its water. If he sold a beehive, he has sold the bees. If he sold a dovecote, he has sold the, sold the doves. One who buys a production of a dovecote from another must allow the first brace to fly. If he bought the production of a beehive, he takes 3 swarms and then alternates. If he bought honeycombs, he must leave 2 combs. If he bought olive trees to cut, he must leave 2 branches. One who buys 2 trees in the field of another has not acquired any land. The mayor says he has acquired land, and that if they grew, he may not trim them. Whatever grows from the trunk belongs to him, and from the roots to the owner of the land. And if they died, the land is not his. If he bought 3, he has acquired land. If they grew, he may trim them. Whatever grows from the trunk and the roots belongs to him, and if they died, the land is his.
Right.
Yoma. Okay. Okay, Zion. If he wished to go, the young men of the priesthood snapped him with the index finger, and they said to him, "My lord Cohen, stand up and cool off once on the floor." If they kept him busy until the time for slaughtering, the daily offering arrived. Every day they removed ashes from the altar as the call of the crier or thereabout, either before or after it. On Yom Kippur, it was done from midnight, and on the three festivals from the first watch. And yet, before the call of the crier, the courtyard was already filled with Jews. At first, whoever wanted to remove the ashes from the altar did so, in case there were many. They ran and ascended the ramp, and whoever preceded his colleague into the 4 cubits won. If two of them were even, the administrator would say to them, "Put out a finger." What did they put out? One or two fingers. But if they did not put out a thumb in the temple.
Okay.
Okay. I think you said before about going into the cloakroom. I have new clothes for you to wear. So many years ago, my wife and I